My name is Paula Cutillo. I'm a hydrogeologist and senior water resources specialist in the Bureau of Land Management's headquarters office. And today I'll be responding to the 4 questions posed by our webinar hosts from a Bureau of Land Management perspective. First, I'll share some background on the BLM. The BLM is a federal agency within the Department of the Interior. BLM manages more public land than any other federal agency, some 245 million surface acres. The agency protects vast natural, cultural, and historical resources on some of the nation's most scenic landscapes and authorizes uses such as recreation, livestock grazing, mineral development, energy production, and timber harvest. As you are likely aware, unprecedented drought is impacting western landscapes and water supplies, and climate scientists are warning us that drought will become more frequent and more severe. Prolonged drought reduces the capacity of BLM managed lands to provide resources the public and local communities depend upon. And drought challenges our ability to achieve our multiple use and sustained yield mission. Because this mission depends upon healthy functioning watersheds and ecosystems, we are increasingly considering drought severity, water availability, and drought resilience when we make land use decisions. It's clear we need new information to make balanced, forward-looking decisions in a changing climate. Now I'll turn to the first question we were asked to respond to. How are decision makers employing drought assessments? In general, we need drought information at both regional and local scales to inform long-term planning and adaptive management decisions. More specifically, we need to know if water is available for proposed activities. For example, hydrofracturing for oil and gas development and wet-cooled solar power plants require large volumes of water. Broad-scale drought assessments help the BLM determine if drought and water availability are issues that need to be considered during the planning process for proposed activities. We also need to know if existing uses should be modified in response to drought conditions. Activities such as livestock grazing and wild horse and burrow management may need to be modified to mitigate the effects of these activities on drought-stressed resources. Robust data on drought type and severity, plant production, and water use are needed to adaptively manage these activities to sustain the health and productivity of rangelands. The BLM's fire program also relies upon drought information to plan wildland fire operations. For example, drought information is incorporated into the seasonal wildland fire forecast that the fire program uses to locate and stage resources in preparation for wildland fires. And when responding to a fire, drought information is incorporated into daily weather reports to predict fire behavior and inform on-the-ground wildland fire suppression decisions. And as a proactive measure, we are building the drought resilience of BLM managed lands by restoring degraded freshwater systems. Restoration can improve ecosystem health in public lands and drinking water supplies for surrounding communities. Healthy watersheds attenuate flooding, support biodiversity, act as fire breaks and refugia for aquatic species, and sequester carbon. Information such as days of perennial stream flow, depth to groundwater, and water use help us assess the restoration potential of degraded landscapes. Accurate information is needed to prioritize where the BLM should invest in watershed restoration. The next question asks, where are the gaps in knowledge that your agency has identified? BLM staff need tools that bring together the wide array of satellite imagery, gridded climate data, and local place-based data for interdisciplinary teams. For example, tools like the Climate Engine application and the Rangeland Analysis platform help staff visualize and analyze real-time satellite and climate data, as well as on-the-ground vegetation data. Tools that integrate these databases and training to use these tools will help staff implement adaptive management plans during drought. When these tools are not available, management decisions may be delayed, drought conditions may not adequately be considered, and opportunities for resource recovery may be missed. The third question asks, why is a non-stationary climate consequential for decision making? Non-stationarity leads to much greater uncertainty for decision makers. It has consequences for authorizing and managing resource uses, as well as establishing reference conditions for restoration. Non-stationarity also impacts the design of transportation infrastructure like roads, culverts, and bridges. Inaccurate flood forecasting leads to undersized culverts at road crossings. This causes water and debris to back up during storms and can lead to severe road and natural resource damage, threats to public safety, and loss of public access. The BLM is replacing undersized culverts to convey floodwaters, reduce erosion, and provide fish and other aquatic species safe passage where roads cross streams and meadows. Accurate forecasting improves the climate resiliency of our transportation infrastructure. The last question asks, has your agency already changed drought assessment in the face of non-stationarity, and if so, how? This is a difficult question to answer because there's tremendous variability in the strategies that BLM field, state, and national offices use to assess and respond to drought across the West. In general, non-stationarity is forcing the BLM to change when we assess drought severity, and to consider proactive as well as reactive drought response measures. In addition to assessing drought when it's necessary to modify resource uses or management practices, we are incorporating drought assessments into long-term planning regardless of current drought conditions. However, if non-stationarity is not accounted for in drought indicators and indices, it is very difficult for us to account for non-stationarity in our decision-making. So we look forward to your feedback on how to account for a non-stationary climate as we incorporate drought assessments into the BLM's planning and decision-making process. In summary, more frequent and severe drought, flooding, and wildfire create complex challenges for the BLM. Ultimately, we need new information to ensure that water is a renewable resource on public lands. We use drought assessments to inform resource use, adaptive management, restoration, infrastructure, and wildland fire decisions. And we need tools for interdisciplinary teams to improve drought response and resilience on BLM managed lands. Timely and accurate information on drought and water availability is needed for the agency to respond to current conditions and to anticipate future conditions. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this webinar on drought assessment and a changing climate, and I look forward to meeting you at the workshop in Boulder.